All right, so we're talking politics, and the presidential elections are, of course, coming up, and we have two senators duking it out in the Bay State. So should you talk politics with your friends or coworkers, or do you keep your leanings off limits? Robert V. Taylor is the author of A New Way to Be Human. He joins us this morning. And Taylor, you really have an incredible life story, from fighting apartheid in South Africa to being the first openly gay Episcopal dean in the United States. You know what it's like to have to tread carefully, so you've got some thoughts on this issue.
Well,
talking politics.
Yes. You know, I think, firstly, it's just great to be with you. Thank you. And, you know, I think sometimes we're reticent to talk politics because we've been told that it's one of the two topics we don't talk about, that and religion. And I think when we look at the political discourse in our country right now, we realize that it's sort of dead in the water. We're at a level of, you know, the quick soundbite and lots of demonizing of people who have different perspectives. And I think this is a wonderful moment for us to reclaim our place in the political process, and we can only do it by actually talking about politics. And so that begs the question of,
how do you? Who do you talk about it with? Because, I mean, do you talk about it with your family, your coworkers? Do you have to approach it differently? Let's maybe start with, should you talk about it at work?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think work is probably one of the least safe places for many people, because you might be talking with someone who's your supervisor, who has a certain amount of power over you. But I think in each of these situations, the first tool that I would suggest to people is know your story and claim your story and engage in the conversation. If someone is talking about healthcare, for instance, you might want to approach it as a healthy 28-year-old saying, you know, I don't understand why I should be paying into a system when and so you're approaching it from a personal perspective, or you're saying, you know, my mom died of cancer and the bills were so high.
You're giving it some personal value, so people can't really attack and say, hey, you can't back that up.
It totally shifts the conversation, because you're suddenly engaging with another person as a human being, talking about an issue that is significant to the entire country, but you're approaching it through the lens of your story. And then that allows you to listen to the person who might have a totally different perspective, because you're inviting them to do exactly the same thing.
What if it's somebody who essentially shares your story, though, somebody in your own family that knows what you're all about and still disagrees with you? I mean, obviously there's going to be a time and place to talk about it, but how can you engage without risking an argument?
Well, you know, I operate from a place of assuming the inherent goodness of every person. And I believe that most of us do what I call in my book, most of us want to polish the world. We want to make the world a more just and a better place. I think that's sort of inherent to who we are. And I think that's true of our family members. And so I would suggest approaching it from that perspective and to say, you know, we're all about wanting to seek the well-being and the happiness of all people. So let's talk about how this particular policy around immigration or healthcare actually helps to do that.
All right, so at work you say, hey, this is what I'm about, here's why. At home you say, you know what, we all want the same thing, a better world, let's talk about it. What about with friends? Well,
I think with friends, you know, one of the tools that I would suggest for the friend conversation is to say, you know, how can we dignify difference? Differences are actually good.
Right, and use that to spur debate. In your book, you have 7 spiritual pathways that help you break this down. So again, your book is A New Way to Be Human. And where can people find more information about you online?
At robertvtaylor.com.
And if they'd like to hear from you right here in Boston, there's an opportunity as well tonight at 6 p.m. at the Boston Public Library. You'll actually be there. Lecture and reading lecture?
I will, and engaging with audiences and signing copies of the book.
All right, so if you want to hear more, you can check that out or go online. Let's head over to Brett now. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, Sir Bonnie, thank you.